Hello, my name is Jacob Rockwell, and I'll be talking about the biomechanics behind the forehand frisbee throw. So, some key definitions to know when using the forehand frisbee throw obviously is one is the forehand, otherwise known as the flick, which is a quick snap on the wrist, kind of like you're turning a doorknob, and it either occurs on the right side or the left side, depending on what your dominant hand is. The pivot, which is all in your lower body, so how you step forward and throw, or when you step, or if you step to the side and throw. High release, so releasing up at the head, and low release, releasing at the waist. So just like any other skill or activity that you do, there are phases that come into play when trying to execute it. So for this one, for the forehand frisbee throw, there is a setup or preparatory phase, which is when you are getting ready to perform the skill. There's the wind-up phase when you're building up torque or energy to get ready to put into the force. Force production is obviously throwing the frisbee or shooting a basketball or whatever your skill is. And then your follow through is when you are trying to regain balance and fully finish the skill. So for the setup, for the each phase, there's critical elements that go along with each phase so that you can properly execute the skill. So for the setup phase, you're gonna face your target with your feet shoulder width apart, and then when you're holding the frisbee, you're gonna make sure that's in your dominant hand. And the easiest way to do it the easiest way to perform the grip would be to flip the frisbee over so that so that underneath of the frisbee is pointing up, and then you're gonna make a gun with your hand, kind of like this. You're gonna make sure that your middle finger is on the edge of the frisbee, and then your index finger is following right up behind it, and then you're gonna flip the frisbee over, place your thumb on top, and then there's these rings around the frisbee that you're gonna put your thumb on, and then instead of having these two fingers, your ring finger and your pinky, all curled up like this, you're gonna relax them, like you're gonna extend them out so that they don't affect the throw in any way. And then when you are holding the frisbee, you're gonna hold it up, and you're gonna make sure your elbow is at a 90-degree angle, kind of like this, but it's gonna be in front, and then you're gonna be like pointing the frisbee towards your target, making sure that you're maintaining that 90-degree angle. In the wind-up, this is when you're going to end up moving. You're going to end up building up energy to throw. So what you're going to do is you're going to rotate your shoulders as well as your hips and your arm all to the right or clockwise if you're right-handed, or counterclockwise if you're left-handed. When you rotate, you want to make sure that your arm stays at that 90-degree angle, kind of like this, and then it's just moving to the side. Your shoulders are opening up and your hips are opening up. After that, you go into the force production phase, which is the first part is you're going to step either forward or to the side. It's your preference. And then as you're stepping, you want to make sure that you're bringing your arm forward, because if you were to step and then bring your arm forward, you would lose power in your throw and it wouldn't go as far as you would like it, or it would tail off to the right or to the left. When you step forward, you want to make sure that you're also transferring your weight. You don't want to lean too far back because the frisbee will go too high up in the air. And then if you lean too far forward, it'll go straight to the ground. So you want to make sure you transfer your weight evenly so that it goes straight and where you want it. And then you're going to flick your wrist, kind of like that doorknob motion. You're going to flick your wrist and then let go of the frisbee. And then that ends the force production phase. As soon as you release it, you're going to recenter yourself so that you regain your balance. And then you're going to prepare for the frisbee to come back, or you're just going to start taking off running down the field if you're in a game. So for my top flight performance, I decided to pick a video of Brody Smith. He's a professional ultimate frisbee player, and it'll be my top flight performance for how to execute each critical element correctly. So as you can see, Brody Smith, he's got the frisbee in his dominant hand, his feet are shoulder width apart, and he's ready to throw. Next, he's getting ready, he's winding up, he's loading his arm back, keeping it 90 degrees, and stepping forward. Next, he's bringing his arm, he's stepping down, and bringing it down at the same exact time so that he's not losing any force behind it. And now he's releasing the frisbee and about to regain his balance.
Alright, go ahead.
So as you can see from the two videos, obviously my performer was not doing what he was supposed to, but that's just how he envisions a forehand throw without being told the critical elements or anything like that. So now we're going to talk about the different muscles and movements that are in the throw before we get into comparing both of the performers. So the primary muscles that are used in a forehand frisbee throw are your shoulders, your biceps, your forearms, your groin, and your quads. Those are the main ones because obviously you're throwing, so your shoulder is moving constantly. Your bicep is flexing and flexing and extending. Your forearms, that's where the rotation in your wrist comes from because you use your forearms for that. Your groin and your quads for when you step to the outside or forward. Your secondary muscles are your glutes, your hip flexors, your hamstrings, and your calves. They're secondary because they don't predict how much you will throw, but they add more force into it. So like when you throw, if you raise up on your back foot that's been planted the whole time, that can add a extra little force into it from your calves or hamstrings and whatever. But your hip flexors, I would think that they would be a primary, but they're secondary. Mostly, I would think they're primary because you're rotating with them, but they're secondary because you don't use your hips to throw it. You mostly use your wrist. So as I stated before, this is a little bit about the critical elements. Feet shoulder width apart, frisbee up, loading back, stepping with that foot forward, and then about to bring it down. Bringing it down, as he's stepping forward, he's bringing the frisbee down, creating enough force to release it, and then now he is releasing it. And as I stated with the calves, he's lifting up on that calf to add more force. So the force principles for each phase, each phase has a different amount of force principles and different kinds of force principles. Force principles are such things as balance, torque, all of rotation, and a lot more. So in the setup, some force principles, the main force principle in the setup is your balance. If you don't have a good base, you're going to be off balance, and your throw, each phase afterwards will be a little bit wobbly, and you might not get the outcome that you want because your base was all wrong. In the windup, torque and rotation are the main force principles. Your torque is coming from you rotating. As you rotate, the torque it shifts. Like your joints will shift, creating friction in between them. And then when you return back, that friction will help with force. And the rotations is in your shoulders and your hips. Your force production, you have balance, center of gravity, weight transfer, torque, force, rotation, and height, speed, and angle of release. Your balance is when you step forward or step out. You got to make sure that your balance is good, so that way you don't tip over or lean too much forward, and that kind of plays into your center of gravity. If you were to step forward, your center of gravity would be shifted a little bit further out so that you can maintain your balance. If you were to step out, it would shift out with you. Weight transfer, you're transferring your weight from your whole body to that one leg that moves forward or moves out. Torque, like I said, comes from twisting back, rotating your shoulders and hips back. The force is coming from your arm, the speed of your arm coming forward, and the speed of your arm coming forward and your hips and everything. Rotation in the hips, shoulders, and rotation in your wrists as well. The height, speed, and angle of release is as you're releasing it, whether or not you're releasing it up high, down low, how fast you're releasing it, and at what angle you're releasing it. So if you're releasing it at a 45-degree angle, 90-degree angle, and such like that. And then your follow through is just your balance. You're just regaining your balance, making sure that you don't fall over again. And that's it for the force principle.
Alright, go ahead.
So now we're talking about the error correction in my performer's throw. So as you could see from the video, his feet were shoulder width apart, but he was facing the wrong direction. He was facing sideways instead of towards what he was throwing towards. The frisbee was down low. It wasn't up high, pointing to his target, and his arm was not at 90 degrees. His grip, however, was the correct grip form, and that was the only thing he got right in the setup. In the windup, he brought his arm back, but did not maintain a 90-degree angle, and there was only rotation in the shoulders, no rotation in the hips, which can take away from your force. And the force, he didn't step. However, he didn't step at all. His legs remained stationary the whole throw, but he did bring his arm forward, and he somewhat flicked with the wrist. It wasn't a complete flick, but it was something that can be improved on. And then the follow through, he brought his arm back down. He would be able to catch the frisbee, but he would not be facing his target. He would have to catch it on the side. So for my plan of action, what I would do is I would sit down with him, and I would show him the video of him throwing, and then go over what he did wrong. And then I would show him the video of the top flight performer to show what they did right and what he needs to improve on. And then what I would do, the first thing I would do when teaching him is have him practice the flick, because the flick is the most important part. Everything else kind of falls in line with it. So once he gets the flick down, he can work on stepping, the rotation, and the follow through. And then after that, I would show him his first video, and then record him again once he's practiced it a while and gone over everything, and then show him the video again to show how much improvement he has. So in conclusion, with my video on how the biomechanics of forehand frisbee throw, you have the setup, the wind-up, force, and the follow-through. In the setup, you're just squaring up to your target, make sure you have proper grip. I'm pointing at the target. In your wind-up, you want to make sure that you're really rotating between your hips and your shoulders and loading that arm back so that you can build up torque. In your force production, bringing your arm forward, and then flicking with the wrist. So it's a flick with the wrist. You're not using your entire arm. You're just bringing your arm forward, flicking with the wrist. And at the same time, you're making sure you're stepping forward or stepping to the side, depending on which is more comfortable for you. And then in your follow through, you're just regaining your balance and getting ready to catch the frisbee again. And like I said, with the error correction, I obviously would sit down with the performer, go over everything, make sure he gets it down, and then see how he improves over time. And then I would go from there. So this was my video on forehand frisbee throw, and I hope you enjoyed.